Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Leeds series. The city of Leeds is one of the 5 metropolitan boroughs of West Yorkshire. 38 civil parishes lie within its boundaries. Which slice of the city are we seeing today? Welcome back to Leeds for the final time, people. It's a bit dull, a bit misty, a bit grey out here, but whatever the weather be, welcome to Wetherby. This Leeds video is sponsored by Past Days, a family history blog by June Terrington. You'll find her link in the description. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. For the 38th and final parish of Leeds, we're in the town of Wetherby. This is a market town close to West Yorkshire's county border with North Yorkshire. This sits approximately 12 miles away from Leeds City Centre and is as close to York as it is to Leeds. At only 8 miles away, Harrogate is the nearest large town. Wetherby stands on the River Wharfe and for centuries has been a crossing place and staging post on the Great North Road, midway between London and Edinburgh. Wetherby is mentioned in the Domesday Book as Wedrebi, a name thought to derive from wether or ram farm, or else meaning settlement on the bend of a river. It's noted for Wetherby Bridge, which spans the River Wharfe, also a racecourse and a prison, as well as a town centre full of historic buildings and attractions. It's also got links to William Cavendish. As a result of its situation on the old Great North Road, Wetherby has many former coaching inns, some of which are still used by travellers today. The town was listed in a 2018 Sunday Times report entitled Best Places to Live in Northern England, and although it didn't top that list, it's still a mighty fine place to reside. Let's go and see what it's like as we close out the Leeds series. We start at the police station in an area south of the wharf known as Micklethwaite, which used to be a village in its own right. Its identity as a separate place disappeared in the 2000s when its farm buildings were demolished. As well as the police station, the area contains the Magistrates Court, the town's leisure centre and swimming baths, which we'll see later, and this, the town's Mercure Hotel, situated on a roundabout where the A58 meets the A661. On that roundabout, there's a giant stone horse sculpture designed by Leeds native Christopher Heaton. Originally designed as one of 5 horses, the sculpture celebrates the town's link to horse racing. Also on the roundabout is this structure. Now, I have no idea what this is or was, and a copious amount of researching yielded nothing. I suspect it's something to do with the Magistrates Court though. On it, there's a plaque. I don't know, we've not gone very far and already we've seen quite a bit, haven't we? Okay, so on this arch, or gateway or whatever it is, there's a blue plaque here. And you might remember the Collingham episode and all the blue plaques that you find around that village. Well, there's one here. I know we're not in Collingham, but I assumed that this guy lived in Wetherby and had something to do with Collingham at some point. Harry Taylor, butcher, served in World War I. Now we cross the River Wharfe, which we'll see many times on this route. This crossing is via the A168, which is known as Privas Way. Privas is a French village, the capital of the Ardèche department, which is Wetherby's twin town. This brings us into the Hallfield area in the southeast of the town. This has a large council estate, some sheltered housing, and some houses built by the prison service. I'll explain why those exist later. Next, it's the fire station. This was built in 1957 and houses one operational fire appliance. Because Wetherby is located close to the A1, fire crews here are highly skilled in extraction techniques needed when dealing with traffic collisions. Almost opposite, there's an anchor, salvaged from Scapa Flow in the Orkney Isles. It celebrates Wetherby's link to the Royal Navy, which you might think is a bit odd, seeing as we're nowhere near the coast. All shall be revealed shortly. So this is the Cluster of Nuts car park, which I'm stood next to. What a great name for a car park, the Cluster of Nuts. Fantastic. There's a map here, and there's two things that strike me about this map. One, it's a schematic, so it's not, you know, greatly accurate, but most of the things on here I do know where they are and I will be able to get to them along the route. It's a fairly long route. The other thing that strikes me is this at the top. Look, London's 200 miles away and Edinburgh is 200 miles away, and that'll be a reference to the Great North Road, so we're in the middle. Anyway, we're here on this map and I'm going to head for Hallfield Lane next. Hallfield Lane and the Cluster of Nuts car park are where you'd head for if you were wanting the town's Morrison's store, which stands across from the anchor. This is just one of the many retail outlets Wetherby has. Walking along Hallfield Lane, we come to a brand new medical centre. This sits on the edge of the Hallfield estate. In the early 2000s, this medical centre replaced a large house named Hallfield's Mansion, which lay derelict for many years. Wetherby's naval connection comes in the form of Wetherby High School. This was what's known as a stone frigate. A stone frigate is a little hard to get your head around, but basically it's land which is termed as being a ship. Where this stands used to be a female residential camp known as HMS Ceres, or affectionately the Wrennery. This was a supply and secretarial base for the Royal Navy, and as you can see, some of the old camp buildings still stand. Landmarks coming thick and fast along here. We've got a playground, little field here. Just going to walk straight past this one today because, oh, this is called Mason Field, according to this. Mason Field. Just going to walk straight past this because our next major landmark is right there. It's a cemetery. This is St James's Cemetery, and in here there's one of Wetherby's 5 churches. In the centre of your screen as I pan around is a daughter church to St James's, which is further around our route. It's called the Church on the Corner. It's an old cemetery chapel, but I'm pretty sure you guessed that already. In front of the cemetery is an old red phone box, which was empty by the way, and in turn that stands in front of Mason House, a community centre. Next we pass another school, this time a primary school. There are 4 primary schools in Wetherby. Like the cemetery and the parish church, this one bears the name of St James. One of the other 3 is on the route too. A footpath then takes us to York Road, where we find a stone abutment close to the site of the former Wetherby York Road railway station. This once carried the Harrogate to Church Fenton railway line across the road. I love finding things like this because this is the kind of thing that people just drive past all the time and don't realise what they're passing. It's amazing to think there would have been a railway line along here at some point. Not anymore. The railway history continues shortly by following the old line which runs down the side of this building, Wetherby's Masonic Hall, which houses 2 craft lodges, Calcaria, consecrated in 1897, and Lascelles, consecrated in 1925. Following the former Harrogate to Church Fenton railway line brings us to a junction. This is where the line linked to the Crossgates to Wetherby line, which had Wetherby's other station known as Linton Road. There are 2 former link lines, and between them is Hudson Park, named after George Hudson, the famous railway engineer known as the Railway King. This has a line of lime trees which were planted as part of a town greening initiative in the year 2000. If you follow the path in between the trees, which by the way is known as the Lime Tree Avenue, you'll hit the second of the two link lines, and you can see where the line once ran under this old railway bridge. Okay, I've just come past the hour mark in terms of time walking around Wetherby here. I reckon I've got another hour and a quarter, maybe hour and a half to go. It's quite a long route this, but Wetherby is a big town and I'm not expecting to catch every little last detail of it because of its size. I will take a drive later on though around some of the northern areas so you can see those, but I think that's just mainly residential, quite frankly. So yeah, most of the stuff will be caught on this walk. Now we're in the barley fields area of the town, which has a lot of large Victorian terraces and some former quarry workers' cottages amongst its features. It also has this building. That right there is a scout hut. Now, speaking of quarry workers, I can show you where the quarry was. Named Sandringham Park, this is built on the old quarry, hence its bowl shape. It has a large green space, outdoor gym pieces, and a decent sized children's play area. It has a friends group who maintain it, and it's won some awards in the past too. On the other side of the park we hit York Place, which is an area of brutalist architecture. These apartment blocks most likely date from the 1970s. 47 North Street opposite is, believe it or not, an old convent. Originally, St Teresa's Convent stood where St Joseph's Roman Catholic School now is on Barleyfield Road, adjoining St Philomena's Convent School. When it closed, the nuns moved here. You know, sometimes you can't find a petrol station for love nor money. Well, there's two here in close proximity. There's a Morrison's petrol station over there. You can just about see it. And then a few hundred yards up the road, there's another one, a Shell station. Right, we're heading down into Wetherby town centre now. And there's our first landmark, the Royal Oak pub. Get ready to see a lot of pubs. After all, this was the old Great North Road. The Royal Oak is just the tip of the iceberg. In the heyday of the coaching era, Wetherby had up to 40 inns and alehouses. On the way into town, we pass Wetherby's Royal Mail sorting office. That's convenient because, of course, all the inns go hand in hand with mail coaches. The first recorded mail coach arrived in Wetherby in 1786. Next, we dive down a side street to check out St James's Church. This is a fairly modern church. It was consecrated in 1842. Before it was built, Wetherby had a chapel of ease which was served by clergy from its mother church in Spofforth. The church was built from stone quarried at Collingham. The first stones were laid in 1839 by a man named Quentin Rhodes, who contributed significantly towards the initial cost of the building, which was £4,000. It ended up costing £4,300. So the church is closed. I was going to go in, but it's fine because I've got plenty more to cover. So the more time I can save in this episode, the better. I don't want it to be stupidly long. So next we're going down here, and I can see a row of lights in the distance. I wonder what they're all about. Next we have Church Street and these two buildings. The first one is a church room, and the second, much larger building is the St James's Church Centre, which is used for several different activities and local groups. Now the lights I could see belonged to this restaurant. This is the Muse, one of the restaurants that forms part of the Market Town Taverns group. Since 2004, it's been one of Wetherby's most popular upmarket eateries. Now we're on Bank Street, where we find Wetherby's Methodist Church. This opened in 1829, replacing two previous Methodist churches. Only one of those still stands, as the one that used to be on North Street is now a car park. Where Bank Street meets North Street is the Garden of Rest. This was developed on the site of a former pub named the Bowling Green Inn, which was demolished in 1929. This sculpture is known as the Tribute to Young People. Here we go, guys, for the 38th and last time. A TVI card on a parish notice board. This one, of course, for Wetherby Town Council. There we go. That is the City of Leeds completed. Also in the garden is the Huguenot Arch. This used to stand on Westgate between two houses and was reputedly built by the descendants of Huguenot refugees, a French Protestant denomination which originated in the 16th century. In 1685, a change in French law outlawed Protestantism, meaning many Huguenots had to flee France. A lot of them were skilled weavers, so finding work in Yorkshire was easy, hence why some of them lived right here in Wetherby. That last shot, by the way, was not just one but two awards that the Garden of Rest has won recently. It's a lovely peaceful corner of town and it's right opposite this row of shops and the entrance to the Horse Fair Centre. We're going into that in a moment. But first, have another pub. This is the Swan and Talbot, a Grade 2 listed coaching inn. It's still very much in use today as it has been since its days as a coaching inn. It's also a 3-star rated hotel. Blue plaques everywhere you look in this part of Wetherby. Look at this one, for example. This is to do with Wetherby Manor, which was here, or the old courthouse at least, was situated in these gardens behind this plaque, according to it. Across the road, there's another blue plaque. There's one on the side of the pub I've just shown you, the Swan and Talbot. When we get across the road, we'll read what it says. Easier said than done. Quite a lot of traffic in Wetherby town centre. I've noticed this. Seems a popular little place. Here we go, across the road. Okay, so posting in. This important posting in on the Great North Road had ample stabling in coaching days, from whence departed the carriers to Leeds. There was a soldier's room under the eaves and a malt kiln in which they brewed their own beer. This inn was first licensed in 1678. So there you go, there's a bit about the Swan and Talbot for you. Now we're in the Horse Fair Centre. This was built in the 1970s and was redeveloped between 2002 and 2005 when Morrison's bought the entire centre, demolished the old co-op and built the store we saw earlier. In 2006, the centre was roofed with a glass canopy. There's not much to see in there, but it has many household names like Boots, Superdrug, Card Factory and many more. Back out onto the road, overlooking the Garden of Rest, is Wetherby's NatWest Bank. Sant'Angelo is next. This was a popular Italian restaurant, which used to be the Angel Inn. This has recently closed, however it's going to be turned into a Wetherspoons, something which has divided local opinion. A quick dive down Victoria Street brings us to Brunswick Court, a posting horse stable which had room for 8 horses. The blue plaque tells us it was constructed in 1824 at the height of the coaching era. So once again it's blue plaque central. I've just shown you Brunswick Court. This building is the Brunswick, which was once known as the Devonshire Arms according to this, a substantial new stone house in the 1824 sale of Wetherby. It provided an assembly room, pens for sheep and pigs were erected in Victoria Street on market days, and it has the only remaining stable yard. Now, I just come across the road again, risky life once again. I'll show you what this building looks like. There we go. As you can see, it's now Richard Grafton Interiors. That was worth the effort. Worth the graft, should I say. Now we're in the marketplace. Wetherby has had a licence to hold a market since 1240, when the Knights Templar were granted the right by royal charter issued by Henry III. In 2007, the marketplace was partially pedestrianised. Overlooking everything here is the Town Hall. This is the second Town Hall Wetherby has had, and it dates from 1845. The original hall was a small plain building with a clock and a bell tower. The ground floor contained the town jail, and outside were the town's stocks. This is the Black Bull, another pub, would you believe it? It's one of the 9 town centre pubs which are still in use. It's a friendly community local comprising a single main room. It has live music on Sunday nights too. And this wouldn't be a marketplace without a market hall. Obviously now not used as it once originally was, there are more modern shops within it, and as we'll learn shortly, it has a bit of wartime history. So it's not the biggest town centre in the world, this. Obviously you've seen most of it already, we're nearly through it. And we'll walk right past the market hall here. There is a, guess what, a blue plaque on the wall. Check it out and see what it says. Probably something to do with the market hall. Oh no, it's to do with the shambles. Built in 1811 by the Duke of Devonshire for butcher shops. Each was let for 3 guineas a year. In 1888 it was converted into an open market which sold poultry and dairy produce, and a bit of wartime history as well at the bottom there. How about that? We'll walk down here and we'll turn right at the end and then back on ourselves to come around the other side of the town hall and up to our next sort of major area of Wetherby. This chippy has a bold claim on its website. This is the Wetherby Whaler, which apparently for over 40 years has been serving the town with the finest fish and chips in Yorkshire. I tried them out. I can't disagree, to be honest, even if they were a bit pricey. We're heading for Westgate now. This was the Devonshire Arms, named for the Duke of Devonshire. In 1824, the 6th Duke, William Cavendish, sold Wetherby to finance work at Chatsworth in Derbyshire. From an old inn, we move on to literally a new one. This is the New Inn. They describe themselves as having a fun, friendly atmosphere which sets them apart from the other pubs in Wetherby town centre. I don't know, all these pubs, there's definitely an opportunity for a pub crawl here. Next we have St Joseph's Catholic Church. This was opened in 1986 and it won the Leeds Award for Architecture in 1987. Okay, we've just hit the 2-hour mark, so this is definitely going to be more than 2.5 hours in terms of length. I definitely underestimated how big this route was. We've hit the Golden Jubilee Gardens. Let's have a look at these. These are open every day, with different opening times depending on what time of year it is. But they're definitely open right now, which means we can stroll in and have a look. We've got a board here which tells us about the Georgian bathhouse. So, nestling in the trees below you on the banks of the wharf stands the Georgian bathhouse. Although it's likely to have been built in the 18th century, no records have been found to give us an exact date or tell us who was responsible. Wow. Well, there's the wharf, and there is the bathhouse. Let's go and check it out. This was a fascinating corner of the town. The Georgian bathhouse is a little-known relic from a bygone era. Little is known of its history. The first record of it dates from 1824, when William Cavendish sold the town. Although its structure is typical of other similar bathhouses in the country, few have survived of this quality. The bath itself measures 8 feet by 12 and it has a depth of 5 feet. Its water was sourced from a nearby spring. Next, it's Caxton Street. This is the Wetherby Film Theatre, an independently owned, traditional, single-screen cinema, which originally opened in 1915. It reopened in 1994 after being used for a time as a social club and a bingo hall. And Caxton Street runs into Crossley Street, which is where we find the second of the primary schools on our route. This opened in 1916, and one of its notable former pupils was the ace World War II Spitfire pilot Ginger Lacey. Okay, at the end of Crossley Street there's a park. I don't really need to walk through this one, we just need to skirt around the edge of it because we're heading in that kind of direction. I'll just show you it here anyway. Our final section on foot, for now, sees us enter King George's playing field from Linton Road. This forms part of Wetherby Ings, which is an area of water meadows used as parkland and synonymous with sports. The area is bisected by the River Wharfe and is liable to flooding during heavy rain. This is an area where the river has broken its banks frequently in the past. The North Bank, where King George's Field is located, is known locally as Scour Bank. It's linked to the South Bank by a footbridge, and there's a footpath by the side of the river which before the extension of Linton Golf Club led to Linton Bridge, which you might remember from the Collingham episode. Once you get over the bridge, you're met by a sea of sports pitches. On the south bank are the grounds of Wetherby Athletic AFC and Wetherby Bulldogs Rugby League team. Angling takes place along the south bank of the river too. I'll tell you what, talk about a dedicated sports area for your town. Wetherby Ings is huge. It's got everything. Football pitches, hockey pitches, rugby pitches, all weather pitches, a petanque pitch, everything. Although Wetherby's most famous sporting location is not on Wetherby Ings, it's Wetherby Racecourse. And I'm going to hop into the car now, which is not too far away from this point, and take you to the racecourse next. Wetherby Racecourse was originally located at Wetherby Ings before moving to its current location off York Road. The course is a left-hand oval and for most of its history has only hosted national hunt racing. The racecourse has 3 stands, one constructed in the 1930s with football-style terracing, a 2-tier seated stand constructed in the 1970s, and the new Millennium stand which opened in 1999, providing executive facilities. When York Road railway station closed in 1902, for decades the only rail access to the racecourse was via Linton Road station, meaning visitors to the racecourse had to walk just over 2 miles to get here. In 1924 that problem was solved. Wetherby Racecourse railway station was constructed on the Harrogate to Church Fenton railway line, and until the early 1960s, racecourse specials ran to it from Bradford Interchange on race days. Now, the racecourse isn't the only thing of note to the east of Wetherby. Over there, through the gloom and the murk and the mist, there's a prison. Let's go and check that out next. Directly opposite the racecourse is HM Prison Wetherby. More accurately, this is a young offenders institution. It houses offenders from all over Yorkshire and parts of Lancashire and Greater Manchester. Its functional capacity is 276 detainees. However, the Ministry of Justice lists its operational capacity as being 336. There are 6 accommodation blocks, 2 original units that were built in the 1970s and 4 further units that were erected in 1997. It has the UK's only behind bars Army Cadet unit, which aims to allow inmates to decouple from the social circles that cause them to offend and offers basic life and organisational skills as found in the British Army. One of its most notable inmates was Will Cornick, who was initially jailed here for the murder of one of his school teachers. He later transferred to HM Prison Hindley due to fears for his safety. He was imprisoned for a minimum of 20 years. This next section is a drive around some of the northern residential areas of Wetherby, mainly around the area known as Ainsty, which sits to the northwest of the town centre. On the way, we pass the town's Aldi store. Now, for the majority of this, I'll let the driving do the talking, but here's a quick bit of info. Ainsty has developed over many years, the earliest houses here being built in the early 1950s and the latest in the mid-1990s. It contains a mix of private and council housing. The estate features a co-op, which was formerly a parade of shops. In the past, this parade has had a laundrette, a tool hire shop and a newsagent's called Ainsty News. There are no pubs on the estate, however there is a working men's club on Sandbeck Industrial Estate, only a short walk from the area. I'm going to stop talking now, so enjoy the rest of the drive around this part of town. Next up, it's the final picture bit in the Leeds series. Lastly, we're back into the town centre to check out Wetherby Bridge, which carries the A661 over the River Wharfe. On the bridge is the town's war memorial. On Remembrance Sunday, the bridge is closed to traffic for the wreath laying ceremony. The bridge has 13th century origins. It was rebuilt in the 17th century and widened twice, first in 1773 and then again in 1826. The bridge was an important link to settlements north of the wharf for coalfields at Garforth and Kippax, which are to the south of the town. Until the first Wetherby bypass was built in the late 1950s, Wetherby Bridge was the only river crossing in the area. The bridge is just downstream of Wetherby Weir, which is right next to the site of an old watermill, and here is part of the mechanism that mill once used. You'll also notice the spawning salmon sculpture next to this too. So we've got some information about the spawning salmon right here. Here we go. The Spawning Salmon by Michael Leesner, presented by Wetherby Arts Festival and Wetherby Town Council to celebrate the millennium in 2000. There's also another plaque here which I've not read yet, and this is about the wheel, this wheel. This cogwheel was unearthed in 1991 when it was refurbished by the Trust, the Wetherby Weir Preservation Trust. When working, this wheel was turned by a shaft which came directly from the water wheel of the mill. It was set on this plinth by Persimmons Homes plc on the 26th of February 1993 to preserve part of the history of Wetherby. Awesome, absolutely awesome. And on the other side, as well as you've got the spawning salmon here, on the other side you've got the salmon ladder, which is at the other end of the weir, which you can walk to, but I'm not about to go across there and do that right now because I've already walked past that. Didn't realise there was a path down to it. I thought it was private only, but yeah, there we go. Well, I've been waiting for a while and no one's turned up. I don't mind, quite frankly, though, because I've enjoyed my time here in Wetherby and I've seen some fabulous things, including probably this being one of the best bits, the weir and the spawning salmon sculpture and all the other things I've seen whilst I've been in this town. And that's the end. That is the end of Wetherby and also the end of the city of Leeds as well. And the series that will replace this on Thursdays will be Bradford, and that will start in early 2023. But for now, this has been the town of Wetherby, and this has been the city of Leeds, all 38 of its glorious parishes. And I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.